Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Heart to Heart series. We're going to be talking about the ups and downs of relationships after being released from prison and how you can rebuild them. So, as you all know, FAM works across the spectrum with a lot of different people and families. And one of the issues that is near and dear to our hearts is keeping families together. And so, we want to talk to three people who have had their loved ones come home and how the adjustment worked for them. It's very important that our family bonds that we stay together and we continue to fight for reform, but also that families are whole and happy. And so we want to give everybody a sneak peek or not even a sneak peek, but a real true discussion about what's going on in some of the lives of people who have come home. So we'll be talking today to Marc Brodeur, Sandy Saldana, and Danielle Williams. Welcome. So I guess the first thing I want to do is have you guys talk about how you met your loved one, and then go into how you met your loved one, and then the time they were in prison, how that was for you, and then we can talk about the ups and downs. So I'm going to start with Danielle. Danielle, can you tell us a little bit about how we all got here today, or how you got here today?
Okay. I met my husband in college. We both attended Alabama State University, and we graduated and had moved to Atlanta, and he was incarcerated within, I think, a year after we graduated, actually. So he was sentenced to 21 and a half years, and he served 14 and a half years. So we have two children, and I have bonus children, and that's how we got where we are.
Mm-hmm. Sandy, now your camera's off. Go ahead.
Sorry. I met Rodney. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I met Rodney in the town where I started a bail bond business, and we became friendly through other people. We started dating maybe about 7 years into our relationship. He was arrested, received a life sentence, and came home from a life sentence in November of this year.
Great. Marc?
I met my wife a year before she was served, and we met actually online. We met through a dating site and found out that we actually went to the same church, and that's how our bond started, and we communicated from there, and then she was sentenced. She served 8 months of a 3-year sentence, and she recently was released to home confinement in July.
Okay, so now that we got the basics down, I want to kind of talk about what it was like, trying to keep your relationship together while your loved one was in prison. I say that because there are some people who are watching who may not have a husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend in prison right now, and so just to give them a kind of a glimpse of what that was like for you, at least even in prison, while your loved one was in prison, how you were able to maintain the connections. I will start with Sandy with this one. How were you and Rodney able to just maintain bonds and connections while he was in prison?
So 2 years into Rodney being arrested, maybe 2 years, a year and a half, I had started my own bail business, and I was a person that I never really dealt in the inner city, so I really didn't know a lot about the inner city. And I would say that he was my strength. He was someone that was very strong and taught me a lot about the streets, pretty much, and the people that I was dealing with on a business level. So once he goes into prison, obviously he received a life sentence, and it was, I mean, my main thing was being honest and doing the same thing he had did for me was meant a lot, which was being there. And I promised that I would be there until the end, without any, without false hope, without false intentions or anything else. I just wanted to make sure that I was that friend and provided the same strength and loyalty in a friendship aspect that he had given to me.
Marc?
Well, once she went in, I was surprised at the amount of communication we could have between phones and video. We were lucky enough to have video. She was in a camp environment, so we talked often, almost every day. We did video chats a few times a week or a couple times a week, and we wrote letters. We kept our communication up. I mean, it was imperative for both of us, and the fact that we had it at the time was good. Things started to suffer from a communication standpoint, obviously, when COVID hit, and they had a bout with Legionella, and she was sent to county for a little bit. So that made things difficult, but it was just maintaining that communication throughout, so we could keep that bond.
Mm-hmm. Danielle, you?
I think for us, prison, it's strange to say this, but it did help us because of the communication. It helped us to have a closer connection. We actually came into the relationship with baggage. So it was a time for us to just focus on each other, open up to each other, communicate, and grow together. And like Sandy and Marc said, is a lot of letter writing. Eventually we had email, then eventually they had text services. So there was a lot of communication, and I know the communication is basically what helped and visitation, what helped to get us through.
Did you guys ever have moments where you're like, oh, I can't do this? I mean, just for like, I know that for some of you, the length of time was more than a decade. So like, do you feel like there were times where you couldn't get through it, or it was extremely difficult, or did you find, where did you find resilience through it all? And anybody can take that one.
Yes, I would.
Go ahead, Sandy.
My side, yes, I would say. I mean, here was Rodney dealing with a life sentence. So life in the federal system, I never knew was life. You just weren't going to come home. And to be realistic about it, on some days it was just difficult because, he had an attitude. Rodney was very closed-minded in the aspect of watching TV, of talking to other people. He just focused hard on his legal work and said, I'm coming home. And so pretty much any time that he called, it was 3 times a day. We would just really have, unless I was talking about something, there was really nothing he was talking about. So it kind of, on our end, it was difficult because some days it was just like, I can't do this. This is just too difficult to continue with someone that's, here I was starting my day on a positive note. My life went on. And here he is, and he's just in a funk. But because of his circumstances, I mean, I had to understand that, I wouldn't know what to do if I was in those shoes as well. Would I be on a positive note, or how would I be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback up with what Sandy said. Yes, there were moments when you definitely feel, especially with that time length, you do have moments where it's like, can I do this? Because so much is placed on you. And especially if you have children, so you have to take care of the children, you have to take care of their needs, just to be there mentally, spiritually for them. And then you have I'm ready to come home. Can you call the attorneys, get this done? And that became stressful. So there were moments where it's just like, oh my God, what have I done? Can I do this? And there were moments, like Sandy said, he would call, especially in the beginning, just down and out and depressed. And both of us were depressed, and we weren't helping each other, you know. And it got to a point where I think he actually got, I guess he had his time, or whatever happened with him, he was able to have faith enough to change his mental status. And he would call and uplift me, you know. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, I can't call you and you're down, because that's dragging me down. So we just made the adjustment. And, you know, not to say we didn't ever have our moments after that, but we knew how to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Marc, do you?
Yeah, I agree with what Danielle said. I mean, I think as a couple, you rely on one another to help you through it. You know, I know there are times that I had my difficulties, but I would get her on the phone, or I would plan a trip to drive down there and see her, and you know, and that would set things again. So you had to find ways of you know, correcting the negative. I mean, you could certainly fall into a situation where you feel like you can't go another day. You know, we had some stressful times, and I can't imagine, you know, what's going on now with everybody in lockdown with COVID, and you know, you can't talk to them for weeks at a time. You don't know what's going on. So those stressful times are difficult. There's no easy way through it. You know, I think in my personal case, because the sentence was shorter, you know, it was easier to see that light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I can't put myself in anyone else's position with a longer sentence. You know, I don't know how I feel. I really don't. But we helped each other. That was basically it. I mean, I had my down times, and she would pick me up, and I did the same for her.
I wanted to touch on, Danielle, you talked about your children, and I had the pleasure of meeting your children. Your children are wonderful. I think they're just adorable. I know they're not babies anymore, but when I met them, I just was so impressed. So tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about raising children with a spouse that's away, but then also like how he was able to infuse his presence in his life from afar, because I definitely felt it when I met them twice, I think. Yeah.
Okay, well, my daughter was 2.5 when my husband was incarcerated, and I was pregnant with my son. So basically they got to know each other through prison visits, letter writing, phone calls. And, you know, the earlier stages, it was left up to me because at 2, you can't write. So, you know, I put the phone up, let them talk, or, you know, I would write a letter with her to her dad. You know, as we went to visit, it's funny how when my son first went to visit, he was walking. I think he was maybe 1, and my daughter was 3 or something like that. And it was funny to me because I knew he didn't really know his dad other than pictures. So my daughter ran to her daddy at visitation, and all he did was follow her. And I'm like, you really don't know who's your daddy in here. But he followed her, and you know, as they grew up, we would have maybe 1 time a year visits up until he got closer to the end of his sentence. And you know, we would have visitation. It got to the point where when they got older, they wanted to spend time with him, and they would get jealous at visitation, like, I want my daddy time. And so we switched it up, and it's like, okay, everybody gets 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with your dad, you know? So they would talk for 30 minutes, and maybe we would go to the vending machine, or if we were in high security, we couldn't get up, we would just kind of turn around and let them have that 30 minutes of uninterrupted time. Now, once they got to their teenage years, my husband was really bothered because he felt like they didn't want to be bothered with him. And I would talk to them, and once again, it's left up to me, you know, and I'm stressing that because if you have children, you have to check on the relationship between your incarcerated loved one and your children. And I constantly talk to both of them, and I let him know they're teenagers, and that's what teenagers do. They're in the house like I'm locked up. You know, they don't, they come out to eat, they come out with their friends. So don't be offended. It's not just you, it's just them. And when they came home, I think all of that helped. Now we still had our moments because they had to adjust to the dad being here. But I asked him to kind of just take the back seat in the beginning and let me continue to do, you know, my discipline, and don't just come in and discipline, because I didn't want them to be kind of turned away, you know, turned off from their dad. So that's how it went.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for enlightening us. I thought I wanted to ask you guys, I want to take it forward, fast forward to the day they're coming home, or they're now they're on their way home. You're going to go pick them up, or however you were able to connect with them. Can you tell us a little bit about that day? And then from there, we'll talk about them coming out. But I would like I'll start with Marc. Can you tell me about the day you have either picked her up or or she came home?
You know, that day was a blur. It was stressful. You know, it was so many emotions at once, because we had several instances where people had shown up to pick up their loved one and were turned away at the door, and said things had changed. So we had constantly been hearing stories of that. So there was always that sitting in the background, but no sleep the night before. You know, I drove there and stayed with a family member overnight. I woke up early, after maybe an hour's worth of sleep. I drove and sat in the parking lot, and I was the first one there and just waited. And when she ever walked out the door, I don't know that there's another feeling like that. I don't know that I've had a feeling like that before. And, you know, there were friends of hers from the inside. They were on the side of the building, and everybody's yelling and cheering. And it was an unbelievably happy day. I mean, you know, you're just flying. You know, you've worked so hard.
Danielle?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I froze for a second, guys.
No.
Go ahead, continue, Marc. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that was about it. I'm curious to hear how everybody else's day went.
Yeah, Danielle, can you talk about when Keith came home?
Okay, yes. When Keith came home, prior to that, of course, we had a week where we just got everything that he needed, because he went to the halfway house. So he wasn't coming directly home. And we went to pick him up early in the morning. Like Marc said, we were in the parking lot. I remember it was like raining like crazy that day. And I actually had my parents to go with me, because they've been, you know, right here with us throughout this. And I also had my bonus daughter, and she was a surprise. He did not know that she was going to be there. So we all were in the car, and every van or every car that drove by, we didn't know what to expect. You know, we didn't know if he's coming. We asked the guard, like, what car would he be in? They said a van. So every single van that rolled by, our hearts were beating faster, like, oh my God, is that him? Is that him? And he finally pulled up. And like Marc said, I don't know if I'll ever experience that feeling again. It's just a feeling that, you know, you really, no words can explain, you know. And that's about it.
Sandy?
Rodney had three other co-defendants, so they were brought back to court. The judge wanted to see them all for a resentencing hearing. So we kind of didn't think that he was going to come home. The lawyers pretty much said it was up to the judge, and we really didn't expect I didn't personally expect after you go through so much and this law and that changed and this changed and this is the law right here and this is going to happen right now and then it doesn't happen. So I went there. We went to the court date with the expectation that, you know, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. We'll see what happens. And then he was released that night. He didn't get out till the judge actually ruled that she was going to give him time served. It was a long day with the paperwork and everything else, so he didn't get out until that evening. I think emotionally it was very hard in the beginning because of the fight that you go through and all the challenges and all, like I said, every legal turn, twist that you could possibly take and think, yeah, this is it. This is, you know, he's going to come home. And so at that point, I wasn't really expecting for him to come home. I don't know if that makes sense. So I was overwhelmed and overjoyed, scared. But it was a feeling that, you know, you still walk around like, did this really happen? Because your mindset is for a different sentence, and then all of a sudden a miracle happens.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I can't imagine thinking your loved one has life, and then having the moment where, you know, they get out way earlier. That justice writes itself to some degree. So we're so happy that everyone's home. First of all, I just want to give a moment for that. So let's talk about coming home and the adjustment. So there's a number of things. One, it was pretty well known that when, you know, a lot of times when you go to prison, time stands still, right? So like the world as it was when they first went in is not as it is when they come out. So can you talk a little bit about their adjustment to home, but also their adjustment to home with you, if that makes sense? So I will start with Sandy on this one.
So it's crazy. I can't put it any simpler. Rodney's plans originally, if he was going to come home, were completely different. And then he decided at the last minute, well, we're going to do it this way. So he ended up coming home to me. He decided to come to a place where he doesn't know anybody pretty much, no family, no support. So it was just me and him. So pretty much the first, I'd say, you know, we were in the moment for the first maybe month. And then the realization that now he's still stuck 20 years ago. And now what do I do? And then you see the emotional breakdown. You see what prison did. You see what people talk about that really, some people, you know, we all talk about the excitement, the happiness and everything else, but there is a big part of of the time gap, and that time stood still. So it's been a long journey. I mean, we're in a better place now because he has freedom now, what I would call freedom, because of course we all landed in a pandemic and there was other things that factor in, but it's difficult. It's not like I would say, it's not a walk in the park.
Danielle? Okay, like I mentioned earlier, Keith actually went to the halfway house. So he did not come straight home, and he did end up with weekend passes because he started working. So when you're at the halfway house, if you want to go home, you're going to find a job so you can, you know, come get your weekend passes. So within that week, he found a job, which was difficult. Just that, and looking back, that seemed like the longest week because he was so stressed, because he did not know where he was going to work. He had been away. He did not know how to fill out an application. He was used to, well, let's go into the store or let's go into this place and apply so I can sit down and talk to the person. If I just get in front of the person and can talk, and everybody would direct him to the computer, you know, you apply online. So then it became, okay, well, what do? I have this big gap, you know? So we just filled out the application and used his prior skills. And we also used his skills and jobs that he had while he was incarcerated. And we filled those gaps. And he ended up getting a job. And I would advise people, you know, when your loved one goes to the halfway house, get to know the people in the halfway house, because they're working too. And chances are, if they're working, that company may be looking for other help. And if they're hired, you know, people in the halfway house, then chances are they'll hire your loved one, even, you know, with their past. So that's what happened with him. He connected with someone in there and he was able to get a job within a week. So he actually got 2 or 3 jobs, just, you know, as just as a way of having a better opportunity, career opportunity. And so that's what he's been doing. But as far as coming home, it's an adjustment for both of us. It was an adjustment for the children. It was not easy, because you don't know what to expect. So there is that fear. You're excited when they come home, and you know, you ride to the halfway house and it's like a surreal feeling, but then reality does hit, you know. And like Sandy said, Keith came home to my city, so therefore he's in like my territory. And I think that was stressful for him. So it's just us, it's no, you know, his friends are in other places. Life has moved on for a lot of people. So we had to deal with that. As far as the institutionalized, I can honestly say I didn't see too much of that, other than just some habits that, you know, he's very organized. He was that way before, and he's very structured, and I'm the one that's not. So, you know, we both had to adjust to each other. And that's one thing I would like to stress, like, you don't have to do all the adjusting. You have to compromise, and both of you have to adjust to each other.
Mm-hmm. Marc, what about for you?
Yeah, I listened to their stories, and I've heard so many other stories, and you know, I can't, our situation, because it was such a short period of time, we didn't have a lot of those things that we had to, a lot of those hurdles we had to jump over. We did have our challenges. You know, she came back out. She didn't have her job anymore. She was used to that specific routine. She had been through situations while she was there. She came out with like PTSD type symptoms where, you know, she found herself depressed, and she was happy to be home, but you know, you're in a fog. You know, it's almost surreal, you know, but you know, you can remember what your old life was like, but there's pieces of it that are different, and there's things that have changed with you that are different. So we've been working on that more. You know, her getting out in the middle of the COVID situation. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're not even fully immersed in back to, you know, normal, whatever that is. So, you know, she's found work, and she keeps herself busy, but there's still those days where it just, you know, you just feel, she definitely feels out of sorts. She can't put her finger on it. She doesn't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. You know, so it's, to me, I see it from, you know, that short period of time, which seemed like forever, but that short period of time that she was gone, how much of a struggle it's been. So I can't compare. I mean, I can't imagine what others, you know, have had to go through.
Well, you know, Marc, what's really interesting is that you started a new relationship, and then your wife had to go to prison. And I think that is something that should be talked about in a lot of ways, because like, I mean, a lot of people out there, there's a lot of single people out there, you know, trying to find a mate, trying to find a loved one, trying to find a mate, and then, you know, and then you find one, and then that person is faced with time, and how and why you stuck through it is probably probably a big question on a lot of people's minds, because it is a relatively new relationship, or it was at the time, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that? Sticking through it in the sense of as a brand new relationship, in comparison to maybe relationships in the past. You don't have to go into all of the different relationships you've had, but like, why stick through this one? And then yeah, let's just talk about that for a second.
Yeah, we again, we met online. We spent 2 weeks right after we met each other. We hadn't physically met yet. We were still talking. She was going away for 2 weeks with 2 children that she was adopting in the middle of an adoption process. We talked while she was gone. We bonded, and then we met each other when she, when she came home. Right after that, we spent a few days. We dated. We went out on a few dates, and she was immediately upfront with me about the situation. She told me that what had happened. Didn't have a timeline, didn't have answers, but she was completely honest about it. And, and that certainly helped. It couldn't come as a surprise. It wasn't, if she had said one day, oh, I have to go report, I'm gone. I don't know how things would have went, but her honesty about it was, said a lot about it, about who she was. So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we spent about 8 months together. I lived with the children she was adopting. We became a family. Unfortunately, we lost them through the process. We did not get to complete the adoption. So she went in with a lot of, I don't know how she did it. Honestly, I mean, she was stronger than anybody I've ever met. Being able to deal with that. We were both, we met and we were both finalizing divorces. So yeah, it was a compounded time. But we found strength in one another, and we bonded quickly with one another, and we knew very early on that it was, it was a relationship that was worth going through all of this, for both of us. But she obviously said, I mean, I understand if this isn't a situation for you, and she gave me that time to make my peace with all of it, and I knew, I knew who she was in a short period of time. So yeah, again, we went through the whole process. We went through court, proceedings. She was actually not, they weren't expecting her to serve any time at all. She's never done anything before, everybody, all signs were she would get probation for 6 months, and then she walked out that day with a 30-month sentence. And it was, it was kind of like the elevator, the bottom dropped out of the elevator, and but we just bonded together, and we said we were going to get through this, and we did.
So we have a question coming in from the audience, the viewers who are watching. The question was, how do you all deal with the stress? So now your loved one's home. Now you all are trying to get readjusted to each other. How do you all deal with the stress? And I will start with Danielle.
Again, I just say communicate. Whatever's bothering you, you can't hold on to it. If you were in a relationship while they're in there and you communicated, you got to have the same communication. One thing that I've learned is sometimes you can have, especially if you have a loved one coming home, You know, we're talking about a different type of relationship. So all your expectations might not be met, you know, and that's okay. You might not meet his, he might not meet yours. Now, I'm not saying don't have standards in place, but you know, those are the things you communicate, and this is the standard, this is a non-negotiable. But you know, you can't just always expect everything to be, it's not always going to be right. And that's with any relationship anyway. So just continue to talk about those things and give each other space. You know, that's one thing that I've learned, because in the beginning, when my husband first came home, it's kind of like you crawl before you walk. He was like like a little baby, just attached to me because he needed to learn, what do I do? How do I do this? And I'm teaching him. And then when he starts learning, then he gradually starts, he's adjusting back into society. So, you know, you get fearful because it's like, well, we were this tight in the very beginning. Now he's finding his way, you know, but it's okay. He's got to find his way. And it's to the point, sometimes I like having my space. I like my space. He likes his space. And that's all. Just keep communicating. Mm-hmm. You know, do what you can together that you enjoy together. Make sure you have those enjoyable things that you do together to kind of bring peace back to the relationship.
Sandy?
I agree with Danielle. Dealing with the stress is one thing that I've learned in this journey, is that we tend to forget about ourselves. We're overwhelmed with the fact that we're so excited they're coming home. We have this love story in our head. We remember the people maybe that left before, and then we don't really weigh in the fact that, well, wait a minute, he's missing 20 years of his life. And, you know, now I have to sit here and teach him this and teach him that and teach him. So it becomes overwhelming. In that, as Danielle says, you know, then you teach, and then you see them find their way. And it's like, okay, so now how does this part go? But I've learned on my own, you have to find things also that give you a way out, to make you, to bring back maybe into the relationship. Rodney is not a good communicator, has never been. He's in prison, I think, made him worse of a communicator. So it's difficult to get into him, to know what is going on in there, what's the problem. He's a good listener, but he's not a good communicator. So a lot of the times I took up, for an example, walking, jogging. So it's my time to listen to maybe motivational things, and then I bring it back to the relationship. Well, listen, you know, before you go to sleep tonight, let me play this for you, and you listen to it, and you know, whatever it brings to you is great for you, but this is what it brings to me. So kind of helping him grow. And then I see the difference. I've seen it in our case also, because COVID hit. So he went from being in a USP for so long to now everything is great here, but then now what do I do? Because I have no license, I can't contribute. It's not the way it was going to play out in my head. You know, I'm always underneath her. I can't. And then, you know, you have other people saying, oh, well, she controls you. She's this, she's that. And it, you know, so he's still trying to figure out who is he. He doesn't even know, after 20 years, I don't want to be the guy I used to be. I now want to be someone that I fantasize about being. So I think that, honestly, patience and a lot of making sure you don't get lost in that person. You have to know that you also count, you know, because it's very, 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 there's a thin line with getting lost in this process.
Marc, how do you cope with the stress? How are you both coping with the stress? Let me ask that question.
Yeah.
Both of you all. So
we've done remarkably well. You know, again, they both nailed it. Communication, patience. You know, you've, you know, for me, and really for her, I mean, just don't have specific expectations. You know, you get through today, and then you go on from there. You know, there'll be a time when things will, when everything, you get back to your routine and you can't plan exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. So just, if she has an off day, give her some space, let her go through it. I'm a problem solver. That's me by nature. So I have to drag myself away from trying to fix a situation. And she is finding things out about herself, every day, and trying to figure out why she feels a particular way. And, and just those routines that you went through every day are gone. So you're breaking out of those and making new routines and trying to get back to where you were when you started. And you can't rush it. It's a process, and you just have to let that process take time and just be patient with it.
Okay. So that sounds like great tips on maintaining the stress or keeping the stress down. Communication is obviously king in this situation. So I have another question. It's a little bit long, so I'm gonna lean over as if I'm reading, because I am. But basically, someone wrote in the comments that they have a loved one who served 15 years, and they are happy together. He's currently in a halfway house, but his case manager pulled his passes for something that he didn't know, something he had no knowledge of. So for whatever reason, they pulled his passes. She wants to know, can anyone give her tips on how to maintain patience, because they refuse to give back her the weekend passes because of COVID. So every time she has to see him, she travels 3 hours to see him for an 8-hour pass. So it's a lot like, or it may seem like a lot like visitation, but like, it's just, there's not a lot of time there. So how do you maintain patience in a situation where your loved one is in a halfway house? I know, Danielle, your loved one, Keith, I keep calling your loved one. Keith was in a halfway house. So just how do you maintain patience when things like that are going on?
Yeah. Okay. The halfway house, I'll just admit, I would say that had to have been the most stressful part for us. And I say that because it's so tempting when you have people that are released from prison and they go to the halfway house, and it's like they got one foot in and one foot up, yeah, I'm free, but I'm not free. I'm not free, I'm still in the halfway house. So I don't know why your loved one got his passes taken away, but I wasn't in that situation, but I would just say you probably would just have to continue to treat it as though he was in prison, and start appreciating the fact that you do have the 8 hours that you do have, even though you're traveling to see him. Use this time to get situated for when he does come, because he's coming home. Regardless, continue to talk to him, and make sure that you talk to him and keep him encouraged, so that and that he knows the rules and what's going on at the halfway house. I know our halfway house had an orientation, so we were informed of what they could and cannot do. And maybe you can some kind of way find that information out so y'all can work together and just look, do what you have to do so you can come home. Because that is added stress that you don't need. But get yourself together while he's there, and just take advantage, and it'll go by. Because if he's at the halfway house, you don't have probably, I'm guessing, maybe not too much longer. So you'll get through it. You'll get through it.
So I want to pivot and talk about the ups. So we talked about the stress, we talked about the challenges, we talked about all of that, but you know, you have your husband and your wife home. I mean, after all of these years, and like, or it's, you know, for however long, it's, you know, was it all worth it? And if it is worth it, let us know. Tell us what is, and I'm gonna start with Marc this time, but what are the ups? What are the joys? What are people looking forward to when their loved one comes home?
Yeah. You know, it's the ups are endless. You know, you can start, you feel like you can start your life over. You know, you've gone, this process has taken, you know, not only was there the portion that they were away, but there was that time that they were waiting to find out what was going to happen. So, you know, the stress has just been there nonstop for all of this, and it's just lingered on. And now you can kind of live and start making those, you know, your dreams of what you want the rest of your life to be like. You know, she's released on home confinement, so she's still in the, you know, she's still under the BOP. You know, she's assigned to a halfway house. We still have to go there, but you know, there's so many freedoms that she has. You know, so we're kind of walking into, you know, the full release. You know, so we have a ways to go, but yeah, I mean, just everything from, you know, walking downstairs in the morning to make a cup of coffee and you're making two instead of one. I mean, you know, it's just the little things. I mean, we take more time, you know, appreciating the small things every day, you know, just planting flowers in the yard, and, you know, just spending time with sun on her face, you know, just those things that they didn't have, that they couldn't appreciate. And it was hard to, you know, you have that every day and it seems like regular, you know, just another day. But she can find those small things to appreciate, that just, you know, the smell of your own sheets, you know, just anything, you know, you think of it, and it, you know, it makes her smile. It makes us laugh a little bit. And, you know, it seems silly, but it's not. I mean, it's just, there's, you know, Danielle, you know, likened to, you know, them being like a baby again. You just, you know, you re-experience all these things that you missed out on. And so it's fantastic. The ups are just endless.
Mm-hmm. Danielle?
It's funny that Marc said something about smelling the sheets, and that's one thing. Every time my husband is folding his clothes, that's what he does. Literally, I turn around and he's just like, "What are you doing?" You just don't understand. You understand? Just to be able to smell the aroma from the fresh clothes and not have that prison scent on them. So yeah, it's just the little things. Being able to watch our shows. We have specific shows that we waited to watch together, and now we're able to watch it together. And, you know, he knows he's in trouble if he watches it without me, and vice versa, you know. So just being able to, you know, he was able to be here with my daughter her last year before she graduated from college, and he was able to be there to take his kids to their first year, move them in the dorm. So it's been good. It's been good. We had a lot of good moments, and even in the moments when we're not good, it's still good, because it's like, okay, we're still together. You know, we're not arguing while he's in prison. We're right here together, and we'll get through it.
And so, what shows are you guys watching? I'm just curious. What y'all waiting to watch together? Just give us a few.
The one we really waited on was Power. That's one. And we also like For Life, you know, because I'm constantly both of those are 50 Cent shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're constantly watching. We're waiting for Life to come back, because, you know, that one just really does something to me. Yeah.
Cute. Sandy, what about you?
It's great to have him home. All the little perks. we're still in a rough spot. Rodney's pending an appeal. So in his mindset, he is, although he says he is, but you can tell he can't feel the freedom. He's still every day with the legal stuff and not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. So trying to instill in him that we live for today, and tomorrow's tomorrow. We'll worry about that when we get here. When we get there, I mean, the little things, as Marc and Danielle are saying, planting flowers or watching him water the plants and just looking at them or telling me how to water a plant, or, what do you know about a plant after 20 years, or, but the little things. And we also, Danielle, I will say, you and your husband have been very inspirational to him, seeing your husband on your videos. Rodney's been he helped build a business. We started a business together in prison while he was there to help other family members out. So he's been trying to connect to. So seeing Danielle and her husband is kind of a way out for him. It's a good place for him to be, for both of us to be. But it also is, until I think we see past this appeal process, then we can really feel the real freedom. But on the flip side, it's awesome to have him here, not the phone calls, not having to go through COVID. The breakfast, dinners, everything. Is a great cook. There's a lot of perks to it. And having my best friend back.
Amen.
I do want to say, because I don't want to go throughout the rest of this program without acknowledging what's happening with Rodney. And I do think that as you all know, that I don't know why the government continues to push this issue when they don't have to. And I think I'm optimistic that this will pull through in Rodney's favor. Of course, we all don't know, but I don't see why they continue to push this issue. And I do think and they need to take a look at what it does to families, and the fact that he's been home for, it's been years, 2 years now? I mean, how long has he been home?
It'll be a year. It'll be a year next month.
It'll be a year next month, and he can't settle because of these appeals. And I think that's ridiculous. So, but I am hopeful that he'll be able to stay home, if that makes sense. And I just want everybody else who's watching to know that this is happening. So I guess the other question is I'm going to pivot to Danielle. What are some of the ups for your children having their father home and not behind bars anymore?
Well, he just having him here to witness them grow up and be a part of, finally be a part of their lives. They waited on that for so long, and they sometimes they team up against me. We have our fun moments. They play games together. We just had Labor Day where my kids, and all of them are my kids, but I just stress, my bonus kids, and we all were able to be together for the first time on Labor Day. And, I posted that my husband was just like on cloud 1,000 that day, because all of his kids were together and we just had the best time. And they're just taking it all in and still learning each other, So.
Okay, so I'd like to, before I ask you guys to give final remarks, which will be in a bit, I want to ask you guys, what is something you're the most looking forward to? I mean, is there anything you're looking forward to with your loved one now that they're out? I know Sandy, with Rodney's situation is probably, it's unclear, but even still, what are your hopes and dreams for the next 100 years or so that you'll have with your husband?
Well, my first hope obviously is complete freedom, seeing past this. Second, to just enjoy walk on the beach, live on the beach, enjoy the simple things, watch him fish, work hard, just like anybody else. See him back to the person he is becoming or has chose to become now is a beautiful thing. The transition that he has now done in the past 11 months, even with an appeal over his head, the transition that he has, the man that he's becoming, the new person, it's beautiful. So I can't even imagine how much it can only get better from here.
Mm-hmm. Marc?
Well, yeah, I mean, you just, all the things we talked about and planned while she was away and before, we're getting prepared for being able to live the rest of our lives how we want to live them, and not without, under the shadow of all of this. We can finally put all of it behind, and start that new chapter. We have traveling we would like to do, may change where we live, our jobs that we do, who knows, but just being able to enjoy and not have to think about any of this process, and just put all the things that happened in the past and move past them.
Danielle?
Yeah, I say the same thing. One thing that I know we definitely look forward to is him being able to be off probation so that we can travel. That's what we're looking forward to. Traveling, us together with the kids, with friends, just enjoying life. And, things are finally, it's almost 2 years that he's been home. So we're able to actually see the transition take place and manifest. So.
Mm-hmm. Where y'all want to go?
Well, he said Bora Bora.
Bora Bora? Okay.
One day.
Okay.
But one day.
I've never been to Bora Bora. That is a good place to put on the list. But so I want to give you guys each a moment to say to provide any final words of advice to people if there's anything that I didn't cover. I'm going to start with Danielle and then go from there.
I would just say, as everyone has said, be patient, communicate, take care of yourself. Yes, your loved one is coming home, but you have to adjust to them also. Make space for each other, make time for each other.
Sandy?
I would say the same thing. Patience. Don't forget yourself in the journey. Yourself. You'll get lost in helping him, but make sure that you also take care of yourself. And don't be scared to reach out to people that have been through the journey. I think that's also very key. Make sure that you reach out. That's okay. We're all going through our own different experiences, and there's someone out there that can turn us around on a bad day or can understand us on a bad day, what's going on. It's normal. It's just part of the process.
Marc?
Yeah, they both nailed it. And Sandy, actually, that was the best part. Knowing that there's other people that are going through this same thing, and knowing that there's places you can go, FAM being one of them. I reached out to, I don't know how many people, people that were going through the same thing at the facility where my wife was. We created a group. Just being able to talk about what is on your mind and not feeling like you're the only one, you've got it's on your shoulders. There's a wealth of knowledge out there. There's people who've been through just about everything that you could possibly be through, go through this process. Reach out, don't hold it inside, get it out and talk about it. And that'll make the time go by.
Well, thank you, Danielle, Marc, Sandy, for joining us. And thank you all for watching. This has been a fruitful discussion, and I hope all of you learned something today or got something out of it. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.